when Garnett Silk suffered that terrible transition in Mandeville, there was a show there that night.
Garnett Silk was more than just a reggae singer. He was a rising star, beloved for his soulful voice and spiritual lyrics. But on December 9th, 1994, tragedy struck. His life and his mother's were cut short in a house fire that shook Jamaica and the reggae community. For years, people believed it was a horrible accident, but now, new questions have resurfaced. In this video, we take a fresh look at why Garnett Silk may not have died by simple misfortune. Strap in. This story gets darker than you might remember. Who was Garnett Silk? Garnett Silk was born as Garnett Damian Smith on April 2, 1966, in Manchester, Jamaica. He was one of 9 children and grew up in a home where music was part of everyday life. From a young age, he showed a natural talent for rhythm and melody, performing on local sound systems as a kid. Back then, he went by the name Little Bimbo and worked as a toaster, which in reggae and dancehall culture means someone who chats or raps over rhythms, similar to early hip-hop. By age 12, Silk was performing at local events and sound system shows. His early years were spent honing his craft, performing on systems like Soul Remembrance, Pepper's Disco, Stereophonic, and Destiny Outernational. These performances gave him a deep understanding of rhythm, crowd engagement, and stage presence, skills that would later define his singing career. Around 1985, he recorded his first track, and by 1987, he had released his debut single called Problems Everywhere. Even at this stage, his music carried hints of the spiritual and social themes that would become central to his later work. During this period, Silk met Tony Rebel, another young artist from Manchester, who became a mentor and influence. Through Rebel and friendships with other artists like Yasu Safari, Silk began to embrace Rastafarianism, a spiritual path that would strongly shape his songwriting and public persona. His lyrics began to reflect deeper themes of faith, unity, and social awareness, setting him apart from many of his contemporaries in dancehall. By the late 1980s, Silk transitioned from toasting to singing. He worked with Derek Morgan, a reggae veteran, to develop a smoother vocal style. Around 1989, he officially dropped the Little Bimbo name, stepping into a new phase of his career. He recorded sessions with several producers, experimenting with both singing and DJing, but it became clear that his voice had the kind of warmth and soul that could carry more melodic tracks. In 1990, Silk signed with the production duo Steely and Clevie, who recognized his singing potential. They suggested a stage name that would match his silky, soulful voice, giving birth to Garnett Silk. With this identity, he began recording songs that blended spiritual themes with memorable melodies. One of his first releases under the Silk name was We Can Be Together, a duet that showcased his emerging style and emotional depth. Following this, he returned briefly to Manchester to work on songwriting with friends and producers, refining his craft. Soon after, he joined Roof International, recording singles like Mama, 7 Spanish Angels, and a cover of Johnny Nash's I Can See Clearly Now. These songs demonstrated his to mix heartfelt spirituality with mainstream appeal, and by the early 1990s, Garnett Silk had moved from local talent to one of Jamaica's most promising rising stars. His early life and career laid the groundwork for a voice and presence that would leave a lasting impact on reggae music, combining skill, spiritual depth, and emotional resonance in a way that few artists had managed before him.
Garnett Silk's career peak.
By the early 1990s, Garnett Silk was no longer just a local talent. He was becoming one of reggae's brightest rising stars. A turning point came when he signed with the legendary production duo Steely and Clevie in 1990. These two were powerhouses. Their beats were tight, clean, and perfect for Silk's smooth voice. They understood his talent and steered him into singing instead of toasting. But here's the kicker. Even though he recorded a lot with them, only one track was released during that contract, and it was a duet called We Can Be Together. Frustrated by the slow pace, Silk packed up and went back to Manchester. He used that time to write songs with his friend Anthony Fire Rochester. Those songwriting sessions were key. That's when he really started crafting the deeper, spiritual lyrics that would define his early adult work. Pretty soon, things changed for the better. Silk linked up with Roof International, a label run by Courtney Cole. Here, he recorded some of the songs that would become major hits: Mama, 7 Spanish Angels, and a deeply heartfelt cover of Johnny Nash's I Can See Clearly Now. These songs weren't just chart fodder, they spoke to people's hearts. They carried messages of faith, love, and redemption. Then came the moment that sealed his reputation, working with Bobby Digital, one of Jamaica's top producers. Together, they made his debut album, It's Growing, released in 1992. The album struck a balance between spiritual conscience, cultural pride, and real-world romance. Silk's voice, pure, warm, hopeful, had never sounded more powerful. It's Growing went on to become one of the best-selling albums in Jamaica, showing that his message definitely resonated. Silk didn't stop there. He joined forces with major producers all over the island. He recorded tracks with King Jammy, laying down gems like Fill Us Up With Your Mercy and Lord Watch Over Our Shoulders. The latter tune was so strong that it became the title cut of a 1994 compilation in the UK, proof that his appeal wasn't just local, but international. In 1993, Silk dropped Gold, an album released by the UK's Charm label. That record gathered up a lot of his hits from that burst of creativity. On Gold was Zion in a Vision, produced by Jack Scorpio, a track that hit #1 in Jamaica. He also had Hey Mama Africa, which helped him cross over even more. That particular song became a major international tune for him. Silk's reach even extended to work with some of reggae's biggest names. He collaborated with Sly and Robbie, giving us songs like Thank You, Ja, and Green Line. These tracks were haunting, powerful, spiritually grounded, the kind that make you pause and feel something real. But his fast pace came with a cost. In 1993, during a show in New York City at the Ritz, Silk collapsed on stage. Low blood pressure, exhaustion. The road was catching up with him. He canceled his tour for 6 months to recover. Even after he came back, he didn't slow down. In 1994, he returned to Steely and Clevie to make Love Is the Answer, another driving message of unity and love. He also recorded Fight Back with Richie Stephens. That same year, he headlined big festivals like Reggae Sumfest and Reggae Sunsplash. His live presence was just as powerful as his studio work. Fans described his performances as deeply moving, like holy rolling rhythm, but grounded and real. At his career peak, Garnett Silk was more than a singer. He was a messenger, a spiritual voice. His music blended love, faith, and social awareness in a way that felt very needed, especially in a reggae scene that, at the time, leaned more toward violence and braggadocio. He stood out, and people noticed. The day of the tragedy. On the night of December 9th, 1994, Garnett Silk went home to spend time with his mother in Mandeville, Jamaica. He wasn't just visiting, he was there to check on family, and maybe to relax for a bit. But what started like a familiar, warm reunion turned into a nightmare. Silk had borrowed 2 guns from his lawyer for protection. There had been a recent burglary at his property, and he didn't feel safe. However, according to multiple accounts, he was honest about his inexperience with firearms. One of his friends offered to teach him how to shoot safely. What happened next would change everything. At some point during their session, a gun accidentally fired. The bullet struck a propane gas tank. That tank exploded. Flames swallowed the house. Everyone inside rushed out, including Silk and some of his brothers and friends. But tragedy struck when they realized his mother was still inside. Garnett didn't hesitate. He ran back into the burning house to try to save her. Witnesses say he made that heroic move out of love, not bravado. He believed he could pull her to safety, but sadly, he misjudged how fast the fire was spreading. By then, the flames were too intense, and escape became impossible. He and his mother died inside. Everyone else survived, but the loss was devastating. The news of his death spread quickly. Reggae fans were stunned. Here was a young artist who spoke of peace, faith, and unity, someone who sang messages of love and righteousness. And now his life ended in such a sudden, brutal way. The shock was real. Many people found it hard to believe that his death was just an accident. Initial reports called it a tragic accident. Police said the fire was triggered by shotgun pellets that hit the gas tank. That line became a part of the narrative for a while, that strange, terrible freak accident. Some media outlets mentioned the gas explosion, while others focused on the gun misfire. Different versions circulated, but most agreed. This was a fiery mistake. Georgia-based news didn't pick up much, but in Jamaica and in reggae circles worldwide, the news hit hard. Fans mourned. Fellow artists reacted with grief. His friends and family were left with a sense of what if? What if he had never taken those guns? What if they'd never tried to show him how to use them? What if he hadn't gone back for his mother? It's important to note, Fuji investigative tools weren't the same in 1994. Fire investigations could be less precise. In some cases, evidence is lost, but there was enough to spark real serious questions. The fact that Garnett risked his life for his mother added a heartbreaking layer. This wasn't careless or reckless in a selfish way. He went back because he cared. Even in death, his final act reinforced who he was. Deeply loyal, spiritually driven, and courageous in his faith. But that same act opened up a host of mysteries. How safe was that decision? Had there been more care? And who, if anyone, should answer for what happened? And this night marked a turning point. What looked like a tragic accident would later be questioned, not just by his fans, but by investigators, music historians, and anyone who believed there was more to his story than just a fire. Initial theories and rumors. After Garnett Silk's death, the reggae community and media scrambled to make sense of the tragedy. At first, most accepted the official story. An accidental gun discharge caused a propane tank to explode. But as details emerged, rumors began to swirl. Fans, friends, and even journalists speculated on whether the incident was really an accident or something more sinister. Some early theories suggested foul play. Because Silk was outspoken about social justice and spiritual themes in his music, certain observers wondered if someone wanted to silence him. His songs often criticized violence and called for unity in a scene not always known for peace. That led some to question whether someone might have held a grudge. Others pointed out that as his popularity grew, he could have made enemies in both local communities and the music industry, where competition for attention and contracts could turn intense. Meanwhile, other rumors focused on the fire itself. Some suggested that the gun misfire story didn't fully add up. Reports from local news outlets mentioned inconsistencies in witness statements. How could a simple gunshot trigger such a massive explosion? People began to question whether the propane tank had been intentionally tampered with. These suspicions lingered, fueled by the lack of detailed official records being released to the public. Fans also speculated about more personal motives. Silk's rise to fame had been rapid, and success sometimes comes with jealousy. A few rumored conflicts within his circle of friends and colleagues were whispered about. While nothing was confirmed, the gossip painted a picture of a life more complicated than the serene image Silk portrayed in his songs. International reggae audiences caught wind of the rumors as well. Journalists in the UK and the United States reported on the tragedy, sometimes embellishing details for dramatic effect. Stories circulated about Silk being targeted, ambushed, or even cursed in some interpretations, particularly in online forums and fan newsletters that discussed Caribbean music extensively. Local communities added their own layer of speculation. In Manchester, Silk's hometown, neighbors and friends debated what had really happened. Some insisted it was a heroic act gone tragically wrong. Others felt the accident story didn't fully account for what they knew of the situation. Folk wisdom and hearsay mixed with genuine concern, leaving a fog of uncertainty around the case. In the years immediately following his death, these theories became part of the culture around Silk. His fans remembered him not just for his music, but for the mystery surrounding his passing. Each theory added a layer to his legend, making him a figure who seemed too remarkable for ordinary circumstances. It also sparked a kind of posthumous investigation by fans and journalists, all trying to fill the gaps left by official reports. Even today, the rumors from that period remain part of how people talk about Garnett Silk. They remind us that when a young, talented artist dies suddenly, the public instinct is to look for more than just an accident. They want answers, justice, and a story that fits the magnitude of the loss. In Silk's case, the early speculation set the stage for a later, more detailed understanding of the events that night. An understanding that would reveal just how complicated and how tragic his death really was. Investigation developments. After the fire that took Garnett Silk's life, authorities launched an investigation, but the case quickly ran into challenges. In 1994, Jamaica's fire investigation resources were limited, and documentation standards were not as rigorous as they are today. The initial focus was on confirming whether the death was accidental, and early findings suggested the gun misfire and propane tank explosion explanation. However, questions remained, and investigators faced pressure from both the public and the reggae community to provide more clarity. The police interviewed family members, friends, and neighbors. Accounts of the night were conflicting. Some witnesses described Silk handling the firearm carefully, while others insisted he seemed inexperienced. Confusion over the exact sequence of events made it difficult to establish a clear timeline. Adding to the challenge, the home itself was heavily damaged, and evidence that could have clarified details about the fire and gun misfire was compromised. Investigators also explored whether any third party had been involved. Reports mentioned potential burglary threats, which was why Silk had the firearm at home in the first place. Police examined whether the presence of the weapon could have been connected to external threats or whether any signs of tampering with the gas tank were present. No clear evidence of foul play emerged at the time, though the lack of comprehensive forensic technology left room for speculation. In the mid-1990s, journalists and fans continued to push for more answers. Some investigative reporters revisited the case, interviewing close associates and former collaborators. They uncovered small inconsistencies in witness testimonies, which fueled ongoing debates about whether Silk's death was purely accidental or the result of negligence. These articles highlighted that, while the official conclusion remained accidental death, there were lingering doubts that the public could not ignore. As the years went on, interest in Garnett Silk's legacy prompted renewed investigations. Fire safety experts and music historians reviewed available evidence, including photographs of the scene, early news reports, and interviews conducted at the time. They noted that while the gun misfire explanation was plausible, other details, like the rapid spread of the fire and the tragic death of Silk's mother, suggested a combination of unfortunate circumstances rather than deliberate action. One important development was the attention given to Silk's decision to enter the burning house. Witness statements reinforced his courage, but also highlighted the extreme danger involved. Investigators stressed that, even if the fire was accidental, the combination of flammable materials, a gas tank, and an open flame made the situation almost unsurvivable. That reality shaped later discussions about responsibility, safety, and how the tragedy could have been prevented. Ultimately, the investigation solidified Silk's death as an accident in official terms, but with shades of complexity. Music historians, fans, and journalists continue to analyze the events, creating a layered understanding that goes beyond the simple narrative. The case became a cautionary tale about the dangers of firearms and flammable gas, even in familiar, everyday settings. And it also highlighted the courage and selflessness that defined Silk's character. The investigation's developments left an enduring question in the public imagination. Could more have been done to prevent the tragedy, or was Silk's fate sealed the moment he went back into the house? This unresolved tension would feed into later revelations about his death, deepening the story from a simple accident to something far more troubling: the revealing truth. This is the point where the story of Garnett Silk's death moves from a tragic accident to something more complicated. While the official report classifies it as an accident, many who knew him have long suspected foul play. Some family members believe that the people he helped in his community might have had reasons to resent him. Silk was generous and supportive, but generosity can sometimes create tension, especially in areas with economic and social pressures. His sister, Paula Casanova, has spoken about the possibility that those benefiting from Silk's success and kindness may have turned against him. She suggested that conflicts over building materials, money, and personal disagreements could have played a role in the events leading to his death. In her eyes, the tragedy may not have been purely accidental, but connected to underlying disputes in his hometown. Questions also arose about why Silk was handling firearms at all. He had borrowed 2 guns after experiencing theft at his property, but he was inexperienced with them. Some observers argue that this lack of experience made the situation unusually dangerous. They also question why serious firepower was in his hands without proper safeguards, leaving room for tragedy. There is additional speculation surrounding his return to Mandeville that night. Some reports indicate he was checking on his mother's home, but others suggest he may have been addressing issues related to stolen building materials. This conflicting information raises questions about the circumstances surrounding the fire and Silk's presence in the house. Local stories and discussions online introduced alternative theories about the explosion. In some versions, Silk was allegedly shot before the fire began, with the bullet igniting the propane tank. These accounts challenge the official narrative of an accidental gun misfire during a practice session and add a layer of suspicion that continues to intrigue fans and investigators alike. Despite these suspicions, no criminal charges were ever filed. The authorities concluded the case as an accident, citing the evidence available at the time. Yet, for many, the official explanation does not fully account for the complexity of Silk's life, his relationships, and the circumstances surrounding his death. What emerges from these investigations and stories is a portrait of Garnett Silk as a man who was deeply involved in his community, navigating threats, ambitions, and fame simultaneously. His commitment to his family, his faith, and his music made him beloved, but also may have exposed him to risk. His generosity and courage, which inspired so many, may also have contributed to the tragic circumstances of his passing. The revealing truth is less about a single piece of evidence and more about understanding the tension between Silk's public persona and the realities of his environment. While officially deemed accidental, the combination of threats, firearms, disputes, and heroic choices that night suggests a much more complex reality. For those who loved him, the narrative of an unfortunate accident never quite matched the lived experiences and knowledge of those closest to him. Ultimately, this section shows that Garnett Silk's death cannot be fully understood as a simple event. It was shaped by his character, his relationships, and the environment around him. The tragedy of that night was compounded by circumstances, making the story of his life and death resonate with both heartbreak and mystery. Community and industry reaction. The day Garnett Silk died, grief swept through Jamaica and rippled across the international reggae community. Fans were stunned, unable to comprehend that such a powerful voice, full of hope and spirituality, could be silenced so abruptly. Social media didn't exist yet, but word traveled fast through radio, newspapers, and word of mouth. People mourned not just the singer, but the message he represented. Local communities immediately began paying tribute. Street murals and memorials appeared in Manchester and Kingston. Fans left flowers, candles, and handwritten notes outside places associated with Silk. Churches and Rastafarian centers held services, celebrating both his music and his dedication to spiritual and social principles. Many described him as someone who lived his faith in real terms, not just singing about it, but embodying it in everyday life. In the music industry, fellow artists expressed shock and sorrow. Tony Rebel, who had mentored Silk early in his career, called his death a loss for all of reggae. Other big names like Beres Hammond, Capleton, and Luciano highlighted his contributions to conscious reggae and praised the way Silk blended musical skill with spiritual depth. Interviews from that period show many colleagues reflecting on his unique ability to inspire both fans and fellow artists. Radio stations devoted special segments to his music, playing extended sets of his hits. Programs recounted his early days as Little Bimbo, his rise to stardom, and the message of peace he carried in his lyrics. In some cases, DJs paused the music just to speak about his life and the tragedy of his death, making these moments both emotional and reflective. Internationally, the response was also significant. Reggae festivals in the UK, the US, and Canada held tributes. Journalists and music historians published articles commemorating his talent, often emphasizing that Silk's spiritual and conscious focus stood apart in a scene that could sometimes glorify violence or excess. Fans in London, New York, and Toronto organized vigils and gatherings, using his music as a way to mourn and celebrate simultaneously. Record labels and producers also expressed sorrow. Bobby Digital, one of Silk's key collaborators, described him as a gift to reggae that came too soon. Albums he had completed but not released were promoted posthumously, keeping his voice alive and giving fans a way to honor his memory. Labels often highlighted not just his music, but the values he represented, messages of love, faith, and unity. Silk's death also sparked conversations about artists' safety and responsibilities. Many in the reggae community reflected on how quickly success can bring exposure to risks, from legal complications to threats within local communities. His story became a cautionary tale, inspiring other artists to take precautions while pursuing their careers. For fans, colleagues, and the broader reggae community, the response to Garnett Silk's death was both emotional and practical. They mourned the loss of a life and talent far too early, while also celebrating a legacy defined by courage, faith, and artistry. The reverberations of that night continue to influence reggae culture today, and his memory is regularly invoked in concerts, documentaries, and discussions about conscious music. Legacy and lessons. Garnett Silk's death left a hole in reggae that cannot be measured by charts or awards alone. While his career was short, the music he left behind continues to inspire new generations of artists and fans. Silk's ability to combine spiritual depth, social consciousness, and melodic talent created a standard that others still aspire to. His songs are studied for their lyrical content, vocal technique, and the way they communicated hope and unity. One key aspect of his legacy is the spiritual dimension of his music. Garnett Silk infused Rastafarian principles into songs without being preachy. Tracks like Hello Africa and Jah is the ruler carried messages about faith, human dignity, and moral responsibility. This approach distinguished him from contemporaries who often focused on party themes or dancehall bravado. His work demonstrates that music can entertain while also encouraging reflection and spiritual growth. His approach to social issues also left a mark. Silk's lyrics addressed struggles faced by everyday people, from poverty to injustice. Songs such as Lord Watch Over Our Shoulders and Fight Back offered hope and encouragement, while acknowledging the hardships listeners experienced. For many fans, these tracks were more than music. They were a source of comfort and inspiration during difficult times. Silk's dedication to family and community added another layer to his influence. Even as he rose to fame, he remained committed to his roots. This loyalty and humility are often cited by fellow artists and fans as part of what made him remarkable. His final act, attempting to save his mother during the fire, exemplifies the selflessness and courage that defined his life. It is this combination of artistic excellence and personal integrity that cements his place in reggae history. Posthumous releases and tribute albums have helped maintain his presence in the music scene. These works introduced his talent to audiences who were too young to have experienced his rise firsthand. Festivals, radio shows, and documentaries continue to highlight his contributions, ensuring that new generations understand not only his music, but also the values he embodied. Another lesson from Silk's life and untimely death is the importance of safety and awareness. While his courage was undeniable, the circumstances of his passing remind artists and fans alike that talent and bravery must be paired with prudence. Stories of his death continue to spark conversations about community responsibility, personal safety, and the complex environment artists navigate. Finally, Garnett Silk's legacy is a reminder of the transformative power of music. Even in tragedy, his voice resonates with hope, resilience, and inspiration. Fans still celebrate his birthday, share his tracks, and discuss the life he led with admiration. Musicians often cite him as an influence, particularly those pursuing conscious reggae and spiritually driven music. His story demonstrates that an artist's impact is not measured solely by years lived, but by the depth of connection forged with listeners and communities. In the end, Garnett Silk remains an enduring figure in reggae history. His music continues to inspire, his life continues to teach, and his memory continues to challenge people to embrace faith, courage, and compassion. Through both his art and his example, Silk's legacy reminds us that greatness can be measured not just by talent, but by the heart behind it. Garnett Silk's life and death remind us how fragile talent can be, and how powerful a legacy lasts. He wasn't just a singer. He was a voice for faith, love, and courage in the reggae community. His tragic passing left unanswered questions, but it also left songs that continue to inspire and uplift. Remembering Garnett Silk means honoring both his artistry and his humanity, the risks he took, and the hearts he touched. Whether you're a longtime fan or discovering his music today, his message resonates. Live fully, care deeply, and let your voice matter.